These are the 5 specific floor plans that turn simple meal prep into a contact sport. We often blame ourselves when cooking feels exhausting, thinking we're just disorganized or messy. But more often than not, the real culprit is the architecture itself. In kitchen design, there is a massive difference between a space that looks good in a brochure and one that actually functions when you're holding a pot of boiling water. From the claustrophobic corridors of the apartment special to the island setup that guarantees bruised hips, we are breaking down why these popular layouts fail the human test. Before naming the offenders, we need to understand why certain spaces drain our energy. Kitchen design isn't just about placing cabinets, it is about cognitive load. When a layout forces you to walk 10 extra steps to get the salt, or shimmy sideways to open the oven, your brain registers this as micro stress. Over a 30-minute dinner prep, these dozens of tiny obstacles compound into genuine fatigue. Architects have known about the work triangle since the 1940s, the efficient line connecting your sink, stove, and fridge. But somewhere along the way, builders started prioritizing resale value and open concept buzzwords over the actual geometry of cooking. The result is stunning kitchens that feel like obstacle courses the moment you try to make a sandwich. Coming in at number 5 is the layout that developers love and chefs despise, the one-wall kitchen. You see this everywhere in modern condos and converted lofts because it's cheap to build, since all the plumbing and electrical run along a single line. Visually, it can look sleek and minimalist, but functionally, it is a disaster for anyone trying to cook more than toast. By definition, a one-wall kitchen destroys the work triangle because there is no triangle, just a flat line. To go from your fridge to your sink, you have to walk the entire length of the kitchen, often crossing through the main traffic path of the house. It treats the kitchen not as a workspace, but as a piece of furniture pushed against the wall. The real nightmare sets in when you actually start prepping ingredients. In a one-wall setup, you usually have very limited counter space, sandwiched between appliances. If you're chopping vegetables next to the sink and need to check a pot on the stove, you are constantly moving laterally, like a crab. There is no pivot. In a proper kitchen, you turn 90 degrees to switch tasks, but here you walk. And if you have a partner, forget it. You are constantly bumping elbows because you are both occupying the exact same linear footprint. It turns cooking into an assembly line job and removes the fluid, organic movement that makes being in the kitchen enjoyable. It is efficient for plumbing, but it is punishing for people. Number 4 takes a classic design and ruins it with bad placement. The galley kitchen that doubles as a hallway. A true galley, closed off at one end, is actually highly efficient, and it's what professional line cooks use. But when architects place a galley kitchen between the front door and the living room, they create a highway. Now your workspace is also the main thoroughfare for the entire house. You open the oven door and you block the path to the backyard. You turn around with a hot pot of pasta water and your dog or toddler is running right behind you? This layout forces the cook to be a traffic cop, constantly checking their blind spots before making a move. If you've ever nearly tripped over a family member while draining pasta, you know exactly what I mean. Hit subscribe if you want to see more honest design breakdowns like this, as we're covering bathroom nightmares next week. Now, let's get to the layout that traps you. At number 3, we have the G-shape kitchen, also known as the peninsula trap. This design takes a standard U-shape and adds a 4th leg, a peninsula counter that juts out to create a breakfast bar. On paper, it looks like a dream with maximum storage and counter space. In reality, it creates a dead-end zone with only one narrow entry point. If you are the cook, you are effectively penned in. If a second person wants to come in to grab a drink, they block your only exit. The bottleneck is often less than 36 inches wide, creating a claustrophobic cockpit effect where you feel physically stuck until the meal is served. The other nightmare specific to the G-shape is the corner cabinet black hole. Because this layout has 3 or 4 corners, you end up with massive amounts of inaccessible storage. Sure, you can install lazy Susans, but you still lose significant usable square footage in those dark, deep corners, where Tupperware lids go to die. Also, the peninsula often becomes a dumping ground for mail, keys, and clutter because it's usually the first surface you see when entering the room. Instead of a functional cooking space, you end up with a fortified bunker of clutter that separates the cook from the rest of the party. Number 2 is perhaps the most common mistake in luxury homes built after 2010, the barrier island. We all want an island. It's the #1 request in renovations, but sometimes the kitchen is simply too narrow or the placement is wrong. A barrier island is one that is plunked right in the middle of your work triangle. Instead of an unobstructed path from your fridge to your sink, you have a solid block of granite in the way. Every time you need an egg, you have to walk around the island. Over the course of a year, you are walking miles of unnecessary detours in your own home just to navigate around a feature that was supposed to help you. The National Kitchen and Bath Association recommends a minimum aisle width of 42 inches for a one-cook kitchen, but many barrier islands ignore this to squeeze in more cabinet space. The result is the hip bruiser. You open the dishwasher and it hits the island. You open the oven and you can't stand in front of it. You have to stand to the side to pull the turkey out. It turns your kitchen into a geometry puzzle where two doors cannot be open at the same time. If you have ever had to close the fridge just to let someone walk past you, you are living in a clearance crisis. Before revealing the #1 nightmare, we have to address the trend that caused many of these problems, the obsession with open concept. For 20 years, we have been tearing down walls to combine kitchens with living rooms. While this looks great on television, it removed the one thing kitchens actually need, which is walls for appliances. Without walls, architects have to shove the fridge, stove, and pantry into awkward clusters, or push them to the far edges of the room. The loss of walls is directly responsible for the rise of the barrier island and the one-wall layout. Sometimes a room actually needs 4 walls to function. The #1 spot goes to the most deceptively frustrating layout of all, the broken L shape with conflicting appliances. This usually happens when a standard L-shaped kitchen has the refrigerator placed at the very end of the L, right next to a doorway, or perpendicular to the dishwasher. It creates a conflict zone, where the most popular appliance blocks the entire room. If someone is looking for a snack, no one else can enter or exit the kitchen. It is a design that creates instant family tension. What makes the broken L shape truly nightmarish is that it looks functional until you use it. The counter space in the corner becomes a dead zone because it's too deep to reach, while the counter space next to the stove is too small for prep. You end up doing all your chopping on a tiny sliver of granite, while 3 feet of corner space collects dust. It forces you to work with your back to the room, staring at a backsplash, isolated from the people you are cooking for. It combines the isolation of the one-wall kitchen with the traffic jams of the galley. So what if you are currently stuck in one of these layouts? You don't always need a sledgehammer to fix it. If you have a one-wall kitchen, add a narrow rolling cart to create a temporary island and restore your pivot point. For the barrier island, move your most used items like spices and knives to the side of the island facing the stove so you stop circling it. If you have a G-shaped trap, remove the stools from the peninsula to widen the entry. The goal is to cheat the architecture. You can't move the walls, but you can change your traffic patterns. Looking ahead to 2026 and beyond, the best designers are finally moving away from these rigid shapes entirely. Instead of focusing on L shapes or U shapes, the new standard is zone design. This means creating a dedicated prep zone with its own trash and knives, a cooking zone with spices and pots, and a cleanup zone that is completely separate. By breaking the room into functions, rather than just following the walls, we can make even small kitchens feel massive. It is the end of the work triangle and the beginning of the workstation. Ultimately, a bad kitchen layout is a sign of disrespect to the cook. It says that the appearance of the room matters more than the person working in it. When we accept these nightmare designs like the barrier islands or traffic-heavy galleys, we are accepting unnecessary friction in our daily lives. A good kitchen should feel like a co-pilot, handing you what you need before you even ask for it. It should be invisible in its efficiency, rather than the main character in your daily struggle. The next time you walk into a kitchen that feels off, take a look at the floor plan. You'll likely spot one of these 5 culprits, hiding in plain sight. We deserve spaces that work as hard as we do, where the layout serves the meal, not the other way around. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next deep dive into home design disasters. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.